Well, okay, this week I'd like to talk about a video game. Now, the last couple times we've done that, the custom has been to throw the heavy lifting over to the crew from the old Game Overthinker show. But that team is, for the most part, currently hard at work on the new Overthinker List series. And in addition, we're still hammering out what a full-blown relaunch of the series proper will actually look like, but stay tuned. In any case, I'll be handling it myself this week.
And I am also here.
I'll be handling it myself with some light backup from that for authenticity.
And because I was far and away the breakout character from that series.
Yes. Anyway, to the shock and confusion of damn near everyone in the gaming world a few weeks back, or so it felt like, we found out that Accolade is back in business, or rather the Hong Kong-based investment firm Billionsoft, already in business, have bought the rights to the name Accolade, and they're bringing 90s mascot platformer hero BUBSY the Bobcat back from oblivion to ride the retro platformer revival craze, which has now gone on for long enough that it's probably fair to start calling it a trend or even a movement rather than just a craze.
But what's the big deal? Who or what is BUBSY the Bobcat?
There it is. BUBSY the Bobcat was created by Michael Berlin for Accolade back in 1993, debuting in his first game, BUBSY Claws Encounters of the Furred Kind. Essentially developed as a Western-created multi-platform answer to Sonic the Hedgehog, players controlled BUBSY as he journeyed to an alien planet to battle aliens called the Woolies who'd stolen his precious collection of yarn balls. Because cat, you see. There was a ton of hype for the game and for the character of BUBSY himself among gamers and the game's press, but the actual release turned out to be, you know, just pretty good, though if you only had a Super Nintendo, it was as close as you were getting to a Sonic game at that time, so there was that. It ended up selling pretty well, driving the production of a sequel, BUBSY 2, which had a decidedly more mixed reception, and a third installment exclusively released for the Atari Jaguar that no one really likes or remembers because it was on the Atari Jaguar. The series was effectively killed off for good by 1996's BUBSY 3D for the original PlayStation, which is today remembered as a notorious example of bad early 3D gaming, but actually got fairly solid reviews on first release. There was also a pilot for an animated series that aired only once and did not get picked up for a full season.
What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong?
I can't imagine why.
It is very, very bad.
What else would you expect it to have been?
I'm detecting some hostility. Do you have some kind of problem with BUBSY?
For the purposes of this episode, yes, I have a problem with this, and so does a whole wide swath of the gaming press.
That seems a little harsh.
This is why people have a problem with the retro gaming fixation. They say it's about preserving classical aesthetics and respect for history and forgotten gems and whatnot, but when they run out of actual good stuff to revive, they just move right on to the stuff that wasn't good or they didn't even like in the first place, proving that it's really just about wanting to wallow in the comforts of nostalgia. Is that a good enough setup for the next,
It'll do. Well, Ivan, I won't say you don't raise a good point. The fact is, yes, the extended mascot platformer saturation of the 90s was essentially a whole bunch of developers all trying to catch Sonic the Hedgehog. That much can't be disputed. See, the early to mid-90s, when Nintendo and Sega both successfully got their still mostly kids and families consumer base to jump to a next generation of more expensive consoles and buy whole new libraries of new games, a gambit that was thought to be fairly risky in that era of consumer electronics, is when it became clear that video games weren't going away as a cultural trend and that there might be real ancillary money to be made here in the broader entertainment industry and multimedia. But no one had really figured out how to successfully mass merchandise the ephemera of individual game iconography outside of the handful of biggest Nintendo franchises, and even then only just so much because Nintendo was weird about that. But then Sonic the Hedgehog becoming an instant crossover TV, toy, and sundry merchandising smash after Sega dumped a ton of R&D into making him appealing as a character beyond the game, and everyone figured out the formula, or at least figured out that there was a formula. Take a talking cartoon animal, give him some kind of appropriate token to collect, have him platform through a bunch of fancifully designed levels, although not all of them were platformers, just saying, and hope that the kids at home connect with the character on some kind of basic level strongly enough that you can get some merchandising out of them. Program, rinse, repeat, enter BUBSY.
Right, yeah, and they were all basically the same, largely average to mediocre, and nobody can even remember more than 2 or 3 of them tops.
Awesome Possum, Sparkster, Klonoa, Havoc the Seal, Cool Coyote, Arrow the Acrobat, Gex, Monty Mole, Crash Bandicoot, Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel, Radical Rex, Croc, Willy the Wombat.
Bet you can't do any more.
Blinks, Jazz Jackrabbit, Plock, Decap Attack, Glover, Titus, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. Look, I get why people are so bent out of shape about the idea of a BUBSY revival. The internet and ironic snarker YouTube gamer culture,
which is appreciably different from what you do how exactly.
What I do is smug yet quietly earnest, completely different affect. Anyway, the internet and ironic snarker YouTube gamer culture had turned BUBSY into a go-to mimetic punchline because it was early on in the cycle, so it was one of the mascot platformers that a lot of people remember actually buying, especially kids who only had an SNES and were hungry for anything approximating a Sonic game, like I just said. As such, that same a lot of people had vaguely fond memories of at least the first one, only to be disappointed in discovering it to be kind of average when they eventually revisited as adults when the retro boom hit. That, plus BUBSY 3D sucking, turned it into a cultural-wide backlash, a video game you can't go home again moment that a broad cross-section of folks had experienced and could all relate to. And yet, despite acknowledging all of that, I'm that guy who's genuinely excited to see BUBSY make a comeback.
Why?
Well, mainly because I'll always have a soft spot for the golden age of gaming, yes, and I like the abstract idea of revisiting a classic game that didn't fully work and trying to realize a more complete version of it. But, more substantively, because I appreciate what it represents for thinking more holistically about game design as a whole. The fact is, no one would have remembered the original BUBSY games enough to be disappointed in going back to them if there wasn't something that drew them to them in the first place and stuck in their heads long after they'd moved on, and absent all other options, you kind of have to conclude that that element must have been BUBSY himself. The original game arrived with a ton of pre-publicity trying to make the character of BUBSY connect with potential fans more so than the actual game, and while he'd never make my top 10, even of that era, something in the design must have worked because it drove the game to solid sales once it actually came out. So if the somewhat improbable, possibly undeserved pop culture longevity of BUBSY proves anything, it's the importance of investing in strong, impactful character design, something that the medium has gone through periods of forgetting or devaluing, like that stretch in the mid to late 2000s where the military FPS thing was dominating the conversation.
Yeah, that was a rough couple of years.
Sure, yes, absolutely, gameplay is paramount, but if BUBSY has cachet enough to make a comeback in 2017, fueled by the simple fact that people like the way they drew the cartoon Bobcat, I'd say that stands as a stark rebuke of the mentality that says things like character, story, art, design, etc. should be secondary concerns or even afterthoughts in this medium. The details matter. Appealing to sensibilities beyond just thumbstick reflex and risk-reward gratification matters. Aesthetics matter. Characters matter. And that's why BUBSY actually kind of matters.
Well, that's certainly given me a lot to think about. Speaking of which, when are we going to bring back the actual show?
Hey gang, here's a question that keeps coming up. If your handle is moviebob, where are your movie reviews? Well, my old reviews are in a lot of places. You'll find many of them on my YouTube channel, but you'll find the brand new ones on geek.com, an awesome site that's also your one-stop news source for science, TV, gaming, technology, nerd culture, the works. You can find all my reviews directly by going to geek.com/author/bchipman, because that's my real name, and you can get regular updates on all my reviews and all of geek.com's other great content by signing up for their kick-ass newsletter at subscribe.geek.com. And don't forget to also subscribe to the Geek.com YouTube channel, where you'll find the videos that accompany my reviews and tons of other great content too. Remember, that's Geek.com, the Geek.com newsletter, and Geek.com on YouTube. Make sure you don't miss out on all the latest MovieBob reviews. You can also check out my own new website, MovieBob Central, where you'll find my blog, links to all my work, and shop for my books, ebooks, and future MovieBob products. And please remember to like these videos, share them with all of your friends, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching another MovieBob production.